Hey everybody, welcome to the daily update for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. Happy hump day. I'm looking a little rough today, right? The problem is when you get to be my age, once you get a day or two of stubble, it's like gray and it just makes you look like that much older. Do I care? Kind of. Uh, so let me digress because I never digress. But let me digress. The name of today's daily update is Hidden Gems in the Wreckage. So I'm like, Wreckage, what song could I play? Crawling from the Wreckage by Dave Edmunds. Started playing that, went to do my charts, and then it rolled over to this song, Girl Talk. And I was like, this is a really good song, Girls Talk. And I'm like, this is a really good song. I forgot about this song. And then I did a little exploring. Elvis Costello wrote this song, gave it to Dave Edmunds. Also been covered by Linda Ronstadt and by Susanna Hoffs. Anyway, I always have this thing about when I was a kid, I used to have to ride my bike up to the record store to get a record. And you never really knew what, maybe you heard one of the songs from the record on the radio, but you didn't know what the other 9 or 10 songs were. And so you had to be very careful about what you spent your money on, and your focus was very narrow. And I always lament that my kids don't have to work hard to find their music. They can just click Spotify or whatever. But on the other side, they've got a better chance of finding a 1930s Afro-Cuban band that's cool than I ever did. And this is one of the great things about Spotify and digital music is like you can go, oh, I remember that, and then it leads to this and this, and now I'm thinking about songs from, Susanna Hoff. I'm thinking about Linda Ronstadt songs. I'm thinking about Elvis Costello songs that I'll probably be playing later today. Anyway, this is why you subscribe to Lund, right? For big digressions. All right, let's go to the markets. Let's get Dave Edmunds out of here. Another day when there's really not anything of significance on the intraday charts. I mean, yes, we fell a lot. Yes, we firmed up. Then we went sideways. You can see it a little bit better on the SPX intraday. We gapped up. We lost it. We recaptured the low of the previous day and then just went sideways. I'm not hating on the index action, but when you look under the hood, there's a lot of wreckage going on. And my job, as all of our jobs, but my job is the leader of a community, but I would rather say the facilitator of a community, is to try and crawl through that wreckage and find hidden gems, things that potentially we want to focus on once the market firms up a little bit, or once the market determines which direction it's going to go in. Let's go back to yesterday. Yesterday, I went through a series of names. Let's go over here, right? And I talked about how, this was the falling knife day. This is the day where you'd have to get involved intraday, and that those were riskier plays, and that the move was to wait for the move. I got to get the word the move out because I'm going to say it too many times. The move was to wait for the move after the move. And what we talked about was you'll get this counter trend rally, right? Then we get a pullback, and then we want to see the move after the move. See if we can continue the trend this way, but give ourselves some semblance of a range which we can trade against, which we know where our risk levels are. Okay, so if you look at, I rank these worst to best. And if you look what happened to these names today, Palantir continued to go lower. I mean, it came off the lows a little bit towards the end of the day. Microsoft continuing to go lower. But now we look at PanW. Okay, I like the look of this. Why? Because it's got a very narrow 2-bar range. It's still really high up in the spread between the low and the high. So, here's the low, here's the high, and then it's just kind of gone sideways. It hasn't really fallen back much. The problem with PanW is it's got earnings coming up. Could it get a pop out of this range before earnings? Possibly. But this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to separate the wheat from the chaff. We're not really looking at Palantir and Microsoft because they just have wide rangy bars and they're giving back a lot of this pop. But Pan W looks better. And we keep going down the list. Archer, not so great. But Meta, getting pretty tight. Let's get rid of this. This was the gap resistance. So Meta's pretty tight in here, and it's holding right on the bottom of a gap. So again, possible gem that we're looking at here. How about AMD? Same thing. We got this big gap here that we're just on the edge of. We've got two tight bars, fairly tight bars, that are way up in this range. So here's the range that we came from on the counter trend rally, and we're still holding right up here. If we get into this area here, this big vacuum, we could get a really fast move. So AMD is looking better. CIFR, this is one of the better ones because the macro chart looks fantastic. So it's holding up really good. And AMD, which I ranked yesterday as the best setup, actually moved higher today to the tune of 3.5%. So again, we're looking at Palantir, not so great. Microsoft, not so great. Pan W, okay. I like that. Look at Archer, not so great. Meta, okay, I like that. AMD, okay, I like that. Cypher, like that. Applied Materials, that kind of already went. So now we're going to focus on these. We're going to like, okay, and this is how we're separating the wheat from the chaff, the gems from the wreckage. We can do the same thing over here with a bunch of names that just imploded, right? ICE, imploding down, was it 8% today? Nowhere near any support. How about CART? Going into new lows, breaking down. See, there was the consolidation for a couple of days and then just gave it away. Much weaker than some of the other names. Dash doing the same thing. Uber doing the same thing. Pins right on the precipice. Right on the lows here. So that's not looking great. Netflix right on the lows. Toast. Now, here's where we start to look for the gems. All right. Toast, not breaking down, not at the lows, still doesn't look great, but we have more of a chance that this thing can hold and firm up in this area, which would set it up for us. Amazon, still not looking great. Coin. So Coin's got earnings, so we probably have to throw that off the list. But look at Hood. This is interesting. Hood had earnings, obviously gapped down, but buyers came in, and now we've got this potential higher low here. So this is something that we want to look at. Has this thing finally reached its nadir? Did it get oversold? You'd think like it went down here, bounced, and if earnings were just horrific, it would have gone lower, right? Done something like what we're seeing in ICE or CART or Dash, but that's not what's happening. So far, it's putting in a higher low. So if we can firm up in this area here and get some sort of base, we'd be looking for it to break up higher. So this is just that process of looking through names, throwing this one out, saying that's something that we want to watch. That's something that could set up. Does it guarantee that these things are going to work out the way we want them to? No. Palantir tomorrow could just gap up right here out of the blue, right? But there's nothing in the chart right now that gives us, an edge or a percentage or even leans that way. If it were to do it, it would just be a binary move out of the blue, and we don't play binary moves. So we're looking at things like this that are holding levels and setting up a little bit and consolidating in the upper range of this bounce. Like those give us a better chance that they'll work out. Will they work out? No. We could have Pan W could gap down tomorrow, but at least you know where you're wrong. And this is this unending process of just sifting through these things, getting the best candidates, and then trying to get in at the best levels, managing risk, and then lather, rinse, repeat. So, all right, let's go through the indexes. We'll do the whole thing. The indexes, the ETFs, the watch lists. If you're watching this on Twitter, you want to see the whole video, click the link in the reply. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the comments. All right. So